Perfect.
All right, so let's see. This is day 25 of the Men in Recovery Project for National Recovery Month 2016. And it really has been a wonderful experience for me being able to connect with men all over the country, even outside of the country, who have been walking this path of recovery many different ways, for many different amounts of time. But what we all have in common is this journey of being the best men we can be. And I'm here today with my new friend, Arnold McCuller. Welcome so much, and thank you for being a part of this.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Absolutely. So, I would start every one of these conversations with the exact same question.
Okay.
And it's, what is the greatest gift that recovery has given you to help you be the man you always knew you could be?
Well, I always had a great career. I mean, recovery didn't give me back my career. Recovery didn't give me back possessions necessarily. But what recovery gave me back was my spiritual connection. I lost that when I bottomed out. I wasn't arrested. I didn't come in through treatment center. I'd never been to jail. But I looked in the mirror one afternoon after coming to from an all-nighter about 4 p.m. and realizing that I was spiritually bankrupt, and that the light that I used to see in my eyes was just black holes, and where my spirit used to be. So recovery has instilled a spiritual connection again for me. And in doing so, I'm able to work with other people in recovery and help them along their path.
That's awesome. So the spiritual connection to self, to a higher power, and to the world, that really it's that spiritual thread that's reconnected you to a more grounded life. Is that fair?
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
A higher power, yes. I was always kind of spiritual anyway. As a kid, I was raised in the church. That was a religious atmosphere, but it was a spiritual atmosphere as well for me. I got that. I knew that. Because I was singing in the church, and that was, where I got it, And, but then I left that because of the hypocrisy of it all. And I realized that I didn't want any part of organized religion for a long, long time. And then I came back to it. Once I got clean, I came back to the things that I liked about some of that stuff, not necessarily church or religion, but music. Let's just say the music that I loved, and learning it, singing it, working in it, recording it, performing it on all different levels.
So you said something really powerful at the beginning. You said, I didn't get back my career, and I didn't get any kind of possessions because I still had both of those. And, so often I think we imagine that addiction has to take a person down to a certain bankruptcy, but really you said spiritual bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it's, how has that shifted your career and your possessions?
Well, first of all, it tells me that I know for a fact that people can lose everything and sometimes keep their soul, their spirit. I've seen people in recovery lose it all. The marriage fails, and then they lose the house, and they have this big, horrible divorce, but they keep their spiritual connection. In my case, I had a great career. I had a great job. I was working all the time. My employer was my Eskimo, as it's called. My employer got clean before I did, and I came to work one summer, and he said to me, "Boy, it looks like he looked at my arms, and he said, it looks like you've been having a good time." I said, "Yeah." And he said, I said, I don't know what to do. He said, well, you'll quit when you're ready.
Mm.
And we continued to work, so I was gifted enough to have a life coming into recovery. But then I found all these other kinds of people that I had no attachment to. I didn't know bikers. I didn't know professors. I didn't know. I knew people in the music industry and people in my gay community in New York or LA or wherever. But I just wasn't connected to all these other kinds of people. And all of a sudden, I started meeting the world in recovery, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but it's just something that I needed to say.
Well, absolutely. It's, so you can have all of that and be spiritually bankrupt. And with a spiritual depth and a spiritual groundedness, you can lose all the external things. You can lose all the paper toys. You can lose all of the stuff that tells us is supposed to make us happy and still maintain.
Exactly.
And I think even in today's society, that's still hard to believe. But for men in particular, right? I mean, my focus is so much around how we show up as men.
Yeah.
And as a gay man, as a man who is being who he is, how has the spiritual connection, how has that helped you to be the man that you have wanted to be?
Well, it's helped me be honest and open in all relationships. And I mean any relationship. If I'm encountering somebody who I'm about to have a fight with on the freeway, I can chill and relax and say, listen, dude, what are you doing, And then watch him blow up and drive off insane. And I'm still centered. I've still got my center. I can go to, I can speak to my sponsees and work steps with them. I can understand their pain and without having gone through it, because I've been around long enough to hear people say, what happens when you do this, this, and this, and what happens when you don't apply these spiritual principles in all of your affairs, So I just think it's helped me so much being a sponsor. I sponsor 17 men and 1 woman. And the 1 woman just came on this year. She's an old friend. She's got 18 years, but she wasn't working with her sponsor. And her husband said, why don't you give Arnold a call? And we're all friends. We're working friends. And it's a joy to have her in my life. It's new, it's fresh. And she doesn't, at this point in her recovery, need a woman. And she's got women friends that she can go to if she has a woman's issue that she needs to discuss, but she can also come to me.
Mm-hmm. And so that example that you give of the man on the man or the woman, whoever is driving.
It was a man.
Yeah.
Last week, actually.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't a hypothetical. That was
it was an actual thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we think of being men, you're not supposed to back down from that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're supposed to accelerate that. You're not supposed to, because with honesty and openness, I think automatically comes a degree of vulnerability.
Yeah. And the weird thing was that I wasn't afraid to confront him and say, you're acting crazy. What's wrong? I kind of wanted to help. How can we help you get your center back here on the roads of Southern California?
The highways here are the greatest spiritual teachers.
Oh my God, without a doubt. Between the sightseers, the non-drivers, the poor drivers, and the crazy people.
Yeah. If we can see it that way, right? So there's always, I mean, when you begin to look at life through a spiritual lens,
Yeah.
and the people and the experiences that you have begin to have a different shift. Like
Right.
before I had a spiritual connection, I'd be driving, I'd flick people off, I'd do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Chase them down, jump out of the car, scream at them, and bang on their hood. No. I've never done that, by the way.
No.
But, you know, a girlfriend of mine shared at a meeting once recently said that she used to be this rageaholic on the freeways, and somebody said something to her and it resonated with me. They said, I'm choosing to stay in my own lane for the entire journey. I'm just going to stay in my lane rather than this in and out and weaving and bobbing and trying to find the next biggest space, you know. Stay in my lane.
Which is a great metaphor for life in general, right?
It is.
Yeah. So this idea that I'm exploring is really, how do we as men, how do we kind of redefine ourselves as men through the process of recovery? And with spirituality and that openness, you know, it seems to me, and you tell me if this fits for you, but having a spiritual groundedness has given me the ability to not worry near as much as I used to about fitting in with other men, about having to match men where they feel the need to be or where they have their own insecurity and fear around. And so we're showing up in lots of ways that aren't exactly reflective of who we want to be.
Yeah.
And how we're trying to connect.
The house, the car, the trophy wife, you know.
Yeah.
Stuff. I go to a Tuesday night meeting that's in North Hollywood, and it's just a great group of men that I was afraid to get to know. I mean, generally, I would go to meetings where there were at least a few of the guys, the gay guys, in the meeting. We'd sort of huddle together and be okay with everyone else. But I go to this meeting on my own, not meeting any other gay men that I know, but hanging out with all my straight friends and feeling so, first of all, I was a little nervous. What are they thinking of me? You know, what do they think I am? And what do they really think? You know? And then I said, no, keep going to this meeting because there's stuff to be learned here. And, you know, all of a sudden somebody walks up and says, I see you all the time. What's your name? And, you know, now we're friends, you know. I knew a few guys there before, but I'm getting to know them in a deeper level. I'm getting to meet their sponsees, and I'm getting to hang out with them before the meeting. It's a cigar smoking meeting, so we smoke cigars in the patio before the meeting, and then we go in and have this 1 hour meeting, and I just have bonded with a lot of these guys. I show up at their places of business. I support their places of business. One of them is a auto body guy. I went to him to fix my fender. And another guy owns a health food place, the Harvest Bar, and so I always stop there when I'm in the vicinity and go home because I open myself up to these men in recovery that I would not normally open myself up to.
And I think that's how it is for so many of us men, right? I mean, we come in and we've got all this stuff in our heads about certain men.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe gay men have this experience of like, I'm not safe or these guys are going to treat me the way maybe I've even been treated in other places, and that really are scary or that at least don't feel good. And then, of course, there's other men who are so afraid of who they are or so confused about who they are that just being around other men is scary. Like for me, being around other men was really scary for me because I always felt like I had to fight. Like every guy wanted to hurt me. Every guy wanted to fight me. And it was always on my toes, just trying to pay attention and be alert. And I carried that with me for so long. And it was so unfair to these men because it got in the way. And I lost so much of possibility with connection. And yet I find the environment of these meetings is such a powerful place to be able to take risks and to even say, you know what, I've been coming here for a year and I've been scared to death of all you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it just blows the whole thing open.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying to someone today about sharing the secrets. And like, you know, there was a girl who shared in the meeting today saying she wanted to kill herself. And I said, well, good. At least you said it out loud. Now, you know, we're not going to find you hung someplace because you kept it a secret. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was gay men in recovery who don't have boundaries will sometimes put off a straight guy to the point of feeling as though a lot of these gay men are just predators and not necessarily in it for the love of the fellowship and of the recovery. There are predators, men being predators in recovery anyway, to women, whatever. And I didn't want these guys to think of me as that. And, you know, I've had a history of maybe, you know, asking people if they would be interested in being with me or whatever. But I don't want to be seen as a predator in recovery, and especially in the rooms. So that was another reason I wanted to go to this group of guys and just be me, just be comfortable in my own skin, and not have them feel as though I'm going to want to hit on them, you know.
So that it's safe for them, that it's safe for you.
Exactly.
And we learn boundaries. We learn how to do relationships. We're learning how to be, you know, like you said at the beginning, the spiritual connections giving you the ability to be open and honest, and not open when you don't need to be, and not overly honest, and you know, that balance.
Yeah,
it's such a gift. And you know, we'll close with this, but I always ask my guests to have the last word. So I'll say one little piece, and then I'll ask you. But you know, after 22 years of doing this deal, and being 21 when I first started, I've really grown up in the rooms, and I've become a man in the rooms. And I've sat in rooms, I've sat in small circles of men where there was a gay man who had been deeply, deeply hurt by other men. And I sat in that circle with another man who had been in prison and had deeply hurt gay men. And we sat in this circle together, and these men cried together, and we all were together speaking our truth and healing from these past lives that don't define us anymore. And it's really been one of the most beautiful and powerful experiences of my life, is to see that kind of healing that we could use so much more of in the rest of the society and rest of our world, especially right now.
of course.
You know, so I just I want to say that I appreciate you. I appreciate your truth, your honesty, just the fact that you're walking this path for 32 years and clearly giving so much back.
Yeah, it's essential.
It's a great treat and an honor to meet you. And as I like to say, first, happy Recovery Month.
Because I was working on my drug and alcohol counseling, I'm going to school for that now.
Oh, good for you.
I'm going to the Brining Institute, and one of my assignments was to reach out to the local, you know, drug and alcohol recovery parts of my community of you know, Southern California.
So thank you. And as I like to say, in the spirit of you having the last word, take us home.
Well, the main thing I have to say is that I thank God for my life today. I thank God that I'm able to authentically be myself and move through this process of recovery with grace and dignity.
Very well said. Well, thank you so much, Arnold, for joining me.
You're welcome.